Blood on the floor tiles is slippery, far more slippery than movies ever tell you. For 24-year-old Sophia Bennett, the smell of copper and antiseptic was just another Tuesday night in the ER until the double doors crashed open. A man was wheeled in, half dead, riddled with gunshot wounds that no street thug could have inflicted. He was a Navy SEAL, a ghost in the system, and he was carrying secrets that powerful men would kill to keep buried. Sophia thought saving his life was the hard part. She was wrong, because 10 minutes after she dropped 3 extracted bullets into a metal tray, a suit-clad agent blocked her path and asked her the one question that would turn her life into a target. The rain over Norfolk, Virginia was relentless that night. It battered the roof of St. Jude's Medical Center like handfuls of gravel, a chaotic rhythm that matched the frantic energy inside the emergency room. Sophia Bennett adjusted her ponytail, the elastic band tight enough to give her a headache, and checked the time on the wall clock, 2:14 a.m. She was 6 months out of nursing school, still sporting that new scrub smell, or so the veteran nurses liked to joke. She hadn't yet developed the 1,000-yard stare that the senior staff, like Dr. Holloway, wore like a badge of honor. To Sophia, every siren was still a spike of adrenaline, every patient a puzzle to be solved. "Quiet night," muttered Greg, the intake nurse, scrolling through his phone at the front desk. "Don't say the Q word," Sophia warned, leaning against the counter and sipping lukewarm coffee. "You know that summons the demons." As if on cue, the radio on the desk crackled to life. The dispatcher's voice was distorted, breathless. "Inbound trauma. ETA 2 minutes. Male, approximate age 35. Multiple GSWs. BP is dropping fast. 80 over 50. He's unresponsive." GSWs, Greg sighed, sliding his phone into his pocket. "Gang violence again?" "Dispatcher didn't say," Sophia said, already moving. Her training kicked in, overriding the fatigue. "Trauma 4 is open. I'll prep the fluids." The next 2 minutes were a blur of preparation. Sophia spiked bags of saline and O-negative blood, laid out the trauma shears, and pulled on fresh gloves. The automatic doors hissed open, admitting a gust of wind and rain, followed by 2 paramedics pushing a gurney at a dead sprint. "What have we got?" Dr. Holloway barked, striding into the room. He was a short, wiry man who drank too much espresso and had hands steady as a rock. "John Doe," the lead paramedic shouted over the noise of the gurney's wheels. "Found him dumped near the docks. No ID, no wallet. Just 3 holes in his chest and abdomen." Sophia grabbed the side of the gurney to help steer it into the bay. As they transferred the man onto the hospital bed, her hand brushed his arm. It was rock hard, muscle dense as iron. This wasn't a junkie or a malnourished street kid. Even under the grime and blood, the man was built like a tank. "On 3, Holloway commanded. 1, 2, 3. They hefted him over. The man groaned, a low, guttural sound that vibrated in his chest. "Let's get these clothes off," Sophia said, grabbing the trauma shears. She began cutting through the thick, tactical fabric of his jacket. It wasn't denim or leather. It was ripstop, high-grade gear. Underneath, he wore a black tactical shirt that was soaked through with crimson. As she cut away the shirt, revealing the damage, the room went momentarily silent. There were 3 entrance wounds, 2 in the upper chest, 1 in the lower left abdomen. But they weren't the ragged, messy tears of a drive-by shooting. They were precise, tightly grouped. "Look at the spacing," Holloway muttered, snapping on his own gloves. "That's a double tap to the chest, 1 to the gut." Someone wanted this guy dead professionally. Sophia worked quickly, applying pressure pads to the wounds. "Doctor, look at his left shoulder." There, obscured by mud and blood, was a tattoo. It was a trident, grasped by an eagle, anchoring a pistol. "A SEAL," Greg whispered from the doorway. "That's a Navy SEAL trident." Dr. Holloway's expression darkened. "We treat him like anyone else. Sophia, get a line in. Greg, call the blood bank. We're going to need massive transfusion protocols. I don't care who he is. Right now, he's bleeding out." Sophia hunted for a vein in the crook of the man's elbow. His skin was pale, clammy with shock. As she slid the needle in and secured the tape, she noticed something else. His hands. They were calloused, scarred, the knuckles battered. But on the inside of his wrist there was a series of numbers written in black permanent marker. 449XC. It looked freshly written. "BP is 70/40, Sophia called out, watching the monitor. "He's crashing." "We need to get those bullets out and stop the internal bleeding," Holloway said, grabbing a scalpel. "No time for the OR upstairs. We're doing a thoracotomy right here. Sophia, suction!" The next hour was a masterclass in controlled chaos. The room smelled of cauterized flesh and iron. Sophia moved instinctively, handing instruments, suctioning blood, and monitoring the vitals. They were fighting a war against gravity and blood loss within the confines of a 100-square-foot room. Holloway worked with grim determination. "Got one," he grunted, using forceps to pull a deformed slug from the man's pectoral muscle. He dropped it into the metal kidney dish Sophia held out. "Clink. And 2, Holloway said moments later. Clink. The third one was deeper, lodged near the spleen. It took longer. The monitor wailed a warning rhythm as the patient's heart rate spiked, then faltered. "Come on, soldier," Sophia whispered, her eyes glued to the man's face. He had a strong jaw, dark stubble, and a scar running through his left eyebrow. "Stay with us." "Got it," Holloway exhaled, pulling the third bullet free. It hit the metal tray with a heavy clang. Sophia glanced down at the tray. The 3 bullets sat in a pool of blood. She wasn't a ballistics expert, but she had seen enough gunshot victims in Norfolk. These didn't look like standard 9mm rounds. They were longer, heavier, and they had a strange silver tip. "Stabilize him," Holloway ordered, stepping back and stripping off his bloody gown. "Sophia, clean him up. I need to go document this. If he's military, we have to notify the base." "Yes, doctor." The room cleared out, leaving Sophia alone with the unconscious seal and the rhythmic beeping of the monitor. The storm outside seemed to have quieted, or maybe the adrenaline in her ears was just fading. She began the process of cleaning the blood from his skin, wiping down his chest and arms with warm, soapy water. As she washed the ink off his wrist, the numbers 449XC didn't wash away. They were written in industrial marker. Suddenly the man's hand shot out. Sophia gasped, jumping back. His fingers clamped around her wrist with a crushing grip. His eyes flew open. They were an intense, icy blue, bloodshot and wild with panic. "Easy," Sophia said, her voice trembling but professional. "You're in the hospital. You're safe. I'm a nurse." The man tried to sit up, but the pain slammed him back down. He coughed, a wet, rattling sound. He pulled Sophia closer, his grip not loosening. The drive," he rasped. His voice was like gravel. "Sir, you've been shot," Sophia said, trying to pry his fingers loose gently. "You need to rest." "Listen to me," he hissed, his eyes locking onto hers with terrifying intensity. "Don't let them. Take it." "Take what?" He fumbled at his waist, near the waistband of his blood-soaked tactical pants. Sophia looked down. There, hidden in a small, sewn-in pocket inside the waistband that she had missed during the initial trauma cut, was a small, black object. It looked like a USB drive, but smaller, thicker. "Hide it," he wheezed. His eyes rolled back for a second, then focused again. "They are coming." "Who is coming?" "The police." "No," he groaned. "Not police. The Chimera." Before Sophia could ask what a chimera was, the man's hand went limp. He fell back against the pillows, unconscious again. The monitor remained steady. He was out, but stable. Sophia stood there, her heart hammering against her ribs. In her hand, she held the small black drive. It was warm from his body heat. Hide it. It went against every protocol she knew. This was patient property. It should be bagged and tagged with his clothes. but the fear in his eyes had been primal. It was the look of a man who knew death was walking through the door. She looked at the tray of bullets, then at the drive. On impulse, a split-second decision she would question for the rest of her life, Sophia slipped the drive into her scrub pocket. Just as she did, the double doors to the ER trauma bay swung open again. It wasn't the police. Two men in dark, perfectly tailored suits walked in. They didn't look like they had just come in from a storm. They were impeccably dry. They moved with a silent, predatory grace. The man in front was tall, with graying hair and a face that looked like it had been carved from granite. He didn't look at the patient. He looked straight at Sophia. "Nurse," he said. His voice was smooth, cultured, and utterly cold. "Step away from the patient." Sophia froze. The instinct to protect her patient flared up, overriding her fear. She moved slightly, placing herself between the unconscious SEAL and the strangers. "This is a restricted area," Sophia said, channeling her best head nurse voice, though she was far from it. "You can't be in here. Who are you?" The lead man stopped 3 feet from her. Up close, his eyes were a dull, lifeless brown. He reached into his jacket pocket. For a terrifying second, Sophia thought he was reaching for a gun. Instead, he produced a leather wallet and flipped it open. A gold badge gleamed under the fluorescent lights. Federal Bureau of Investigation. "Agent Miller," the man said. He gestured to his partner, a younger, stockier man with a buzz cut. "This is Agent Wolf. We are taking jurisdiction of this patient." "Jurisdiction?" Sophia frowned. "He's in critical condition. He just came out of a thoracotomy. He can't be moved." "We aren't moving him yet," Miller said, snapping the badge shut, "but we are securing the room. No one comes in or out without our authorization. That includes your doctors." "I have to check his vitals," Sophia insisted, "and Dr. Halloway needs to—" "Dr. Halloway has been informed," Miller cut her off. "This man is a fugitive, nurse." He glanced at her ID badge. "Nurse Bennett. He is a threat to national security." Sophia looked back at the man in the bed. Commander Jack Reynolds, if that was his name, looked about as threatening as a broken doll right now. "He's unconscious," Sophia said. "He's not a threat to anyone." Miller stepped closer, invading her personal space. He smelled of expensive cologne and stale tobacco. "You have no idea what that man is capable of. Now step aside." Sophia hesitated, then stepped back. She could feel the weight of the USB drive in her pocket. It felt like it was burning a hole through the fabric. "Hide it," the SEAL had said. "They are coming." Were these the they he warned her about? The FBI? If he was a fugitive, wouldn't the FBI be the good guys? But the SEAL's fear had felt genuine, and there was something off about Miller. He wasn't looking at the patient with concern, or even professional curiosity. He was looking at the room, scanning it. His eyes landed on the metal kidney dish. The 3 bullets. "Are these the rounds you extracted?" Miller asked, walking over to the tray. "Yes," Sophia said. Miller stared at the bullets for a long moment. He didn't touch them. He just stared. Then he looked at Wolf. "Bag them. Evidence." Wolf produced a plastic evidence bag and a pair of latex gloves from his pocket. He moved efficiently, scooping the bloody bullets into the bag. "Wait," Sophia said. "Pathology needs to log those. It's hospital protocol." Miller turned to her, a thin, patronizing smile playing on his lips. "Federal jurisdiction supersedes hospital protocol, Nurse Bennett. This is a matter of national security. These rounds are classified." Classified bullets? Sophia's mind raced. What kind of bullets were classified? "I need to finish charting," Sophia said, her voice shaking slightly. "I need to log the procedure." "Go ahead," Miller said, "but do not leave the floor. We might have questions." Sophia walked out of the trauma bay, her legs feeling like jelly. She went to the nurse's station. Greg was gone, likely dealing with another patient. The hallway was quieter now. She sat down at the computer, but she didn't type. She watched Trauma Bay 4 from the reflection in the glass monitor. Inside, she saw Agent Wolf checking under the hospital bed. Then he checked the pile of clothes, the tactical gear Sophia had cut off. He went through every pocket. He patted down the jacket. He checked the boots. He turned to Miller and shook his head. Miller said something, his face tightening in anger. He pointed at the patient. Wolf went to the bed and began patting down the unconscious Seal. He checked under the pillows. He checked the mattress. They weren't securing the patient. They were searching for something. The drive. Sophia's hand went to a pocket. She gripped the small plastic device. Panic began to rise in her throat, cold and sharp. If they found it on her, she needed to stash it. She couldn't keep it on her person. If they searched her, she was done. She looked around. The break room was down the hall. The lockers? No, too obvious. The bathroom? No, they might look there. Her eyes landed on the sharps container, mounted on the wall near the med cart. No, too dangerous to retrieve. Then she saw it. The potted plant in the corner of the waiting area, a fake ficus that had been there since 1990. The soil was covered in dusty decorative moss. Sophia stood up, grabbing a clipboard to look busy. She walked towards the waiting area, trying to keep her pace casual. She passed the open door of the trauma bay. Miller was watching her. She could feel his eyes on her back. "Nurse Bennett?" Miller called out. Sophia froze. She turned slowly. "Yes, Agent?" Miller was standing in the doorway. He had taken off his jacket, revealing a shoulder holster. "A moment, please." He beckoned her back. Sophia swallowed hard. She walked back toward him, her heart thumping so loud she was sure he could hear it. "Yes?" "When you prepped the patient," Miller said, his voice dropping to a conversational volume that was somehow more terrifying than a shout. "Did he say anything to you?" "He was unconscious," Sophia lied. It came out easier than she expected. "Before he went under, or perhaps when he first arrived. Did he regain consciousness at all?" Sophia thought of the blue eyes, the desperate grip on her wrist. "Hide it." "No," Sophia said. "He's been out cold since he arrived. GCS of 3. Miller stared at her. He had the eyes of a shark, dead, unblinking. He was studying her face, looking for a micro-expression, a tick, a sign of deception. "That's strange," Miller said softly, because the paramedics said he was semi-conscious in the ambulance. Mumbling. "He must have crashed before he got through the doors," Sophia said, keeping her face neutral. "We had to intubate almost immediately." Miller held her gaze for another 5 seconds. It felt like 5 years. Finally, he nodded. "Very well. If he wakes up, you call me immediately. Do not speak to him. Do not let anyone else speak to him. Is that clear?" "Crystal," Sophia said. "Good." Miller turned back to the room. Sophia turned and walked away. She needed to get to the bathroom. She needed to vomit. She rounded the corner, out of sight of Trauma Bay 4. She ducked into the staff restroom and locked the door. She leaned against the sink, breathing heavily. She splashed cold water on her face. She looked at herself in the mirror. "What have you gotten yourself into, Sophia?" She reached into her pocket and pulled out the drive. It was a matte black USB, but there was a symbol etched onto the casing. A tiny silver chimera, a lion with a goat's head and a snake for a tail. She couldn't keep this. She had to give it to someone. But who? Holloway?